Okay.
So, we've been hanging out literally every day.
Do you still work together?
Yeah.
That's tricky. Asking out, I mean, just saying, be prepared. It could be great. You could go out on a date and it could be awesome, but if you work together with someone that you're dating, ooh, if it ever goes south, and you're young, it will. Eventually, all relationships when you're young do. It's like there's some line, I think, in Family Guy where it's like, but you're my first romance. How could this possibly go wrong? Like, whatever. Don't listen to me. This could be the one. I don't know. But when you work with someone that you're dating, it can be a little tricky. So just bear that in mind. But and how you should ask them out, I don't know. Just you hang out every day, right? Just let it come up naturally in conversation. It's hard to just be like, blah, like, let's be together. Seldom makes a good impression on the other person. It's like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. But you can kind of talk to them about just, my method is to kind of be abstract about it. Like, let's talk about like life, the universe, like what you think of relationships and dating and all that. Just kind of talk about it as a topic. And then kind of gauge her interest in even dating, period. And then maybe be like, so who would you date? Like, what's your person? Who would you date? And then just kind of gauge their interest and see like, how do I fit? Am I checking any of those boxes? And if not, then spare yourself the embarrassment and be like, well, maybe just now wasn't the time. But if you're like, she may read it and be like, oh, well, I mean, the person I would date would be cute and wear glasses and have a rose crown. And then you've got a good shot. So
Just like Tommy Key.
Oh, so she already said she liked you.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you waiting for? It's like, you know what?
I wanted to do it in person, not over text.
Oh, okay. But you know that she likes you by a text, right?
Yeah.
Like she said it. It's in writing. Then just be like, hey, let's just hang out. Like start with like hang out, go somewhere in person, and talk and be like, hey, I just so your text the other day. That you already got a good like icebreaker. So that text. Let's talk about that text. And then it's like. It's because you'll bring it up. She'll probably be very happy to be like, yeah, okay, thank you, because I didn't know how to. The hardest part about talking to anyone that you like is breaking the ice. Once that's done, the rest of it's easy. Both of you are usually very relieved that the ice has been broken, and you'll be like, oh my God, yes, I love you too. Let's go out. It's just the getting there. It's hard, right? Because everyone wants, the first time you tell someone you like them, it's really difficult because it's such an important moment, and it can all go terribly wrong. If you just read the room incorrectly. God knows I've been there, especially as a gay man that fell in love with a lot of straight guys in high school. What do you mean, boo? Oh, ooh. A lot of people. Sounds a lot like boo. You gotta be careful. Very sensitive. I'll tell the story of coming out to my dad at some point. Hold on to that thought. Was there another question from that row? One more? Okay, and then we'll get to the behind you, because you guys are like the peanut gallery. Yes?
What's the story of you coming out to your dad?
Clever child. So I came of age. I mean, this is kind of a long and winding story. My dad was the last person in my family that I came out to. I love my dad very dearly, but he's a complicated man, difficult to know, and he doesn't have the most positive outlook on anything. But he's a good guy. I mean, he's a good guy, and he takes no bullshit, but he's unscrewable. Like, it's just impossible to know what he thinks about something unless you just pry it from him like a wisdom tooth. And for years, like I just, when I was coming of age, I was like, oh, I'm gay. I'm clearly gay because I'm in love with this guy and this guy and this guy and this girl is and this guy. And so I was coming to terms with it. My mother was very, very shrewd, and she kind of knew something was up. So when I was about 16, she got up at like 3 in the morning from a stretched limo outside of, no, kidding. She got up at at 3 in the morning, kind of anxiously to make cookies, which is such a weird thing my mother does when she wants to talk. I'm like, oh, okay, something's going on. We need to talk. So she's, I'm helping her make cookies, and she's like, I couldn't sleep. I'll just, and I was up. I was a night owl, so I tended to stay up really late anyway and just go to bed after I got home from school.
Sounds like me every night.
Right? I'm a freaking vampire. So I was making cookies with my mother, and my mother started talking about her sister who had long since passed away. She was gay and had sadly died young, and so that had kind of put the family in this position where like, wow, okay, like she was the family's first encounter with someone close to you who identified in a way that they weren't prepared for. And it was tragic for everyone, and I guess they learned their lessons. I don't remember my aunt. She died when I was too young to really know her. I was like 3 or 4, so I have no memory at all. But I know the story, and I was like, oh, I don't really know if I should come out. And my mother talked about this, and then just kind of in an abstract way, and then finally said, are you that way? And I was like, well, my mother just didn't know how to say it. She was like, my mother's very like nervous about language. She's like, what's the word? I don't want to piss anyone off. Are you that way? Which of course puts all the responsibility on me to be like, oh, you mean gay? Yeah. And me being me just kind of goes, I think so. I'm pretty sure. And my mother just kind of paused, took a deep breath, and said, okay. Pass the flour, we're gonna make another batch. And we didn't really talk about it. I mean, it was always kind of like, just be careful. I mean, she knew, my mother did not think of it as a choice. She was like, that's just who you are, and there's fuck all you can do about it, but please, for the love of God, be safe. There's crazies out there that hate you for it, and you gotta protect yourself when you're in love, just blah, blah, blah. She was very pragmatic, my mother, about that kind of thing, thank God. And especially for being a Texas woman too, especially very, very old school values in many ways. But she was like, you're my son, I love you, and I just want you to be happy, but you gotta protect yourself. And so my brother was the same way. I came out to my brother not long after because his sister, my sister-in-law rather, his then soon-to-be wife, loved me to death, and she came from Boston. And she had a very different view of everything, and she was like, are you gay? You like gay, right? And I was like, yeah, I am. She's like, I fucking knew it. You owe me $5. And I was like, okay. My brother was like, I can't believe we're having this conversation. I mean, we figured you were, but I didn't know how to breathe. We're waiting for you to come out. I was like, well, I didn't know how to do it either. I don't have any frame of reference for how this works. And so they knew. My mother knew. They knew. My father was the last one. One day, my mother came home, or I came home rather, to my mother, pacing nervously in the kitchen. And I asked her, what the hell's wrong? And she was like, your grandfather's on the way over. He wants to talk to you. I may have told him you were gay accidentally. How the fuck does that work, Mom? She's like, well, we're just talking, and this was several years. By now, I was in my early 20s. And my grandfather, who I love dearly, but is one of those figures in my life that, because he was this kind of towering authority figure in my life, that he remained the only adult I ever deferred to. Every other adult, I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. My grandfather come in the room. John Michael, yes, sir. He just had that kind of, that character about him. So he came over, and my mother had made coffee, or no, he came in, he was like, Carol Jane, make coffee. And I'm like, shit. And we sat down, she served us coffee, and she was like, y'all have a good talking. And my grandfather just, we shoot the shit for a couple minutes, and he just kind of goes, so your mother tells me you are homosexual? And I was like, that's a very clinical word for it, but I mean, yeah. It was like, all right, well, good luck, and don't let anybody give you any shit. Change your sentence altogether. And I was like, people are cool. My dad, though, was the challenge. I was 23 when I came, 22, 23 when I came out to my dad. And it happened because my mother was like, you really need to tell your father because I'm afraid I'm going to fuck up and tell him accidentally the way I did your grandfather, and that's not the way your father, of all people, should be told. So I'm like, okay, fine. Hey, Dad. Yeah? We should go to dinner, just you and me, maybe Wednesday. Do you want to go to your favorite Tex-Mex place, San Miguel's, downtown? My treat. Why? What did you do? Nothing. I just want to talk. We haven't talked in a long time. I miss it. That's weird, okay. So I give myself 3 days to like prepare for this meeting, this momentous occasion. And so I'm like in the mirror, looking at myself, like giving myself the speech. It's like Batman, and like he's like, I'm Batman. Man, trying to like come out to Vicky Vale. And I finally go to dinner with my dad. We sit down, we have our chips and guac, and we have some Dos Equis. And I start to kind of like, well, Dad, so anyway, he's like, let me stop you. Can we eat first before we have whatever earth-shattering conversation this is? And I'm like, fine. Couldn't eat a fucking bite. My dad's over there scarfing down enchilada. And I'm just like, drinking a lot of beer. And when we're done, we've had our tortillas with honey, and my dad's like, all right, out with it. What the fuck's going on? And I was like, that's just who my dad is. And he was like, I was like, well, Dad, and I had this whole bullshit monologue. It was like I thought it was Nathaniel Hawthorne. I'm like, well, people wear masks. And sometimes my father was like, Jesus Christ, are you in trouble with the law? No, all right, you knock somebody up? No. And he proceeds to just keep interrupting me and like hitting me with this laundry list of the worst possible things it could be I want to talk about. Up to and including, have you fucking run afoul of an evil wizard? And I finally tell him, I'm like, no, damn it, will you just let me come out with it? Because I just need to tell you, and if you'll just let me talk for 5 seconds, he's like, this isn't about you being gay, is it? Because I know. Simultaneously relieved and pissed off in my life. Because on the one hand, I'm like, oh, thank God. He has a frame of reference and he's clearly cool enough with it to joke, but how dare he steal my thunder? And my dad just starts cracking up. And I'm like, what? And I get offended. I'm like, what do you mean you know? Is there just something about me that seems gay? He's like, and I'm like, what does that mean? How did you know? He's like, I figured, I know you, you're my son, you went through high school, and, I just had a feeling, He's like, did Mom know? Your mom did. Does she know? Okay, well then good, that's one hurdle cleared. And I was like, when did you figure it out? When was the aha moment? He was like, when you were 16 and I caught you making out on the couch with that guy you knew from soccer. You saw that? Oh yeah. I came up, I got up to go get something to drink from the kitchen. You didn't know I was there, and there you were on the couch, and I was like, nope, not having this conversation tonight, going back to bed. And I stewed on it for years, and then I thought to myself, well, cool, he'll tell me when he's ready. And I was like, why didn't you say anything then? He was like, hey, my son was getting some. I didn't want to cramp his... And so that is how I came out to my father. I was very, very lucky to have a family that understood. Yes?
So I want to know how much you should Ray not be done.
Oh God, I feel awkward answering that question because they're teenagers. Once they become adults, I totally think they'll be the cutest couple. They certainly balance each other out. Like Nagia says, like this little imp of energy. He's like, let's do this is amazing. And Ray is like Rabbit from 100 Acre Wood. He's like just anxious about everything. And it has to be perfect, but stop that. So they're a really good counterbalance to each other, and they're adorable. So, yes, you. This better be good. Very much so.
It removes that initial accent and it changes your linguistic center.
Yep.
It's a phenomenon that is rare, but occurs. Sorry, studies that. And then I think it's really cool because I've never met anyone else who's done it. And also, have you seen the movie The Room?
The Room? Like the Tommy Wiseau movie? Yes, I've seen The Room. Where is this going? If Tommy Wiseau
was to be a voice actor in any animated movie. Oh my goodness.
Soldier B. As few lines as possible, and he gets shot and killed almost instantly. I don't, man, Tommy Wiseau is such a fascinating personality, but that man is not an actor. In my humble opinion, that man is not an actor. And he knows it, like, he knows it. He's just kind of like, I suck at this, but I'm gonna make a career out of banging my head on this wall that is acting. You gotta appreciate that fortitude, but man, he is painful to watch, huh?
What a story, Ted.
Oh, shut up. It's too close. Have you seen the Disaster Artist?
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. He Franco nails it. It's awesome. I love movies about movies and about like movie making and about plays and stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So
You saw the post credits thing.
yes, I did. Oh, no, I haven't read the book.
You should read the book. The ending is actually different.
Yeah. Okay, all right, I should. I love when he got the Golden Globe or something, and like he invited Tommy to come out on stage with him, and Tommy tried to speak. He's like, whoa, this is not your moment. He's like, kind of perfect. So, thank you. Was that it? Did you have something else, or? Thank you for bringing that up about the accent. There are several other actors I know that have that same gift. Ian Sinclair is one of them. He can listen to anyone speak for 5 minutes and almost alarmingly mimic their voice. He's the only person I've met in this business that can actually do a pretty decent impression of me. Which, I mean, I've heard some people like, oh, this is my impression of you. I'm like, shut up. I'm not saying it. But Ian does it, I'm like, fuck. Damn it. I'm through if he ever gets the, But, yeah, it's a cool gift to have. It's also similar to picking up languages. So I speak a couple languages weirdly fluently, and one of them was French, which I learned at the same time that I was learning English because there was French in my household. My grandmother just loved French. She wasn't French at all. There's no French blood in our family as far as I know. But there was, my grandmother just loved all things French, and she was a lit professor, and her specialty was in French lit and French poetry, so she spoke it fluently and insisted that I speak it too. And it was weird that I could speak French without a stutter, and because it was scripted, and I had to, memorize it in a way that I didn't have to think about just spontaneous speech. So it was really cool. So and it's made it. My partner Brandon's the same way. He speaks 5 languages fluently, among them Japanese, which is is considered by linguists the hardest for an English-speaking person to learn because they could not be further apart if they were on different planets. In terms of just how they sound, how they generate meaning, and then synaptical structure, all that stuff. And once he learned Japanese, he picked up French in a fucking week. We wanted to go to Montreal to spend some time, and he was like, I've always been meaning to look at French. And it was like John Travolta in Phenomena. He just read a book on French, and he was like, I'm like, fuck you. Took me my whole life to get here, and you're like, oh, if French is easy, it's just badly pronounced. It's like English through cake. Because the two languages are very, very closely related. In fact, 70% of our vocabulary words come from French. They're just pronounced differently, and you can actually, it's really easier to read French because it looks almost precisely like English. Like you can look at a French sentence and be like, oh, half these words I kind of already know. Like that's clearly possible, that's clearly table, that's clearly all these words. And that has to do with the history of French coming and the Normans invading England, and then Old English disappeared because of it. I speak Old English too, weirdly, which never comes in handy, because they're old now. If I ever want to like perform Beowulf and it's like original like tongue with like a lute and be in front of you like it'll scare the shit out of you, and I should do it. But yeah, right, that and other stuff. But yeah, Brandon speaks right. Brandon speaks Japanese fluently, English, of course, fluently. He speaks French now. He has a smattering of Polish and a smattering of Italian and German. So, excuse me, that is 6 languages he speaks well, and 4 that he speaks fluently. Like he can, we met on the convention circuit because he was an interpreter for the Japanese guests, and has interpreted for some high-profile people like Nobuo Uematsu, the composer for Final Fantasy. Brandon is his preferred interpreter when he comes to our region in the States. And that's how we met. It was great because he had no idea who I was because he'd never seen a dub in his life. I don't watch dubs. I was like, oh, you watch subs? No, I just watched the original Japanese. I'm like, well, you fucking foul. What's your number? Yes, you have a question.
Yeah, for that Dr. Who received inspiration in the writing of Science Gate.
Doctor Who?
Yes, I was wondering who's your
Literally Doctor Who, sorry. I did not mean for that to become a bad joke, Doctor Who. I thought you said Dr. Ghoul at first. I'm like, who is this Dr. Goo fellow and where do I find him? Sorry, continue.
I was wondering who is your favorite doctor?
Oh, they're all. Okay, they're all have something that I love. There's not a single doctor that I hate. There's some people have doctors that are like, oh, fuck that guy, I hate him. And it's usually the one that followed your first doctor. You're kind of obligated to hate him because you're like, interloper! But I've been watching Doctor Who since the Tom Baker days. When Tom Baker was my first doctor. You never forget your first doctor. And Tom Baker, of course, had the role the longest on screen. The only person that's had it longer was Paul McGann, who only appeared twice on screen as the Doctor, but he'd been doing the Big Finish audio productions, the radio plays of Doctor Who as that incarnation for 20 years. So he's had the role the longest. I've actually met him. He's a lovely gentleman who at a con, I came up to him and talked to him a little bit about, like, I'm a voice actor, and I think your voice acting for the Doctor is some of the best. It's really been foundational and kind of the mythos of the Doctor. So thank you for being part of it. He was like, thank you. Oh my God, art Con's wonderful. We meet people like this, and tomorrow it'll all been a dream. I'm like, but yeah, so Doctor Who, my favorite Doctor, like Tom Baker is up there because he was my first, and he was just indelible. Like Tom Baker had this role and he just did things with it. You're like, why? He was just a weird actor that made weird choices that just imprinted themselves on a generation. So, and he did things where he would like pick up a glass of water on set. There's this whole thing he rants about, like this director kept getting onto him because he'd pick up a glass of wine or something and he'd listen to it before drinking. And the director was like, why do you keep doing that? Don't do that. He's like, don't listen to me. Tom Baker did not suffer fools gladly, and by then he'd been playing the Doctor for something like 5 years, so he knew the role and had had it the longest up to that point. And he was like, listen to me, you director who just started. I'm an actor. I know this character. Don't tell me how to drink water. Don't tell me. Do you understand that when I do this, that's an ode to the people of such and such planet that here they're drinking as well as blood. It's like he made some ridiculous thing about like this is an ode to those people who I spent time with because I saved them from their evil monarch. Blah 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 blah. Goes this whole extemporized monologue about why this guy needs to shut the fuck up about the water and just let him act. And he's like, I'm an actor. Tell me where my mark is. Tell me where the camera is. Don't tell me how to fucking act. And so he was my favorite Doctor for a long time because of that attitude, because he was just batshit insane and brilliant. But my favorite Doctor is Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor. The reason being is because Troughton, I think, had the most difficult job of any of the Doctors, because his was the first to take it over from the character and the actor everyone associated with. The show, like William Hartnell, the first Doctor, was getting on in years and was having trouble remembering lines, and his health was failing, so he couldn't really meet the scheduling demands of filming the show, which was pretty intense. And so he's like, but the BBC knew they had a good thing, they didn't want to stop the show, and they're like, so they kind of they pulled this concept out of their ass, like, why don't he's an alien and we don't know much about him, why don't we say that he can regenerate into like a new form, and that way another actor can take over the role when Hartnell retires. And they were like, oh, it's gonna tank, it's never gonna work, but we might as well try it, it's gonna end either way, so we might as well give this a shot. So they came to Patrick Troughton, and he was like, he was a fan of the show, he loved William Hartnell, and thought, yes, I would love to do that, but can I make it my own? Because I don't think I can do a good job imitating Hartnell, and I think that would be an insult to fans who will miss him, so I think I should come in and try to take the role and make it my own. And they're like, yeah, sure, just go in a wardrobe, pick yourself out a wig, and whatever. They tended to let the actors go and pick their own wardrobes. That's kind of been a tradition since the early days. So Troughton, kind of went with this weird, like where you have Hartnell was this kind of a frosty patrician. They used to call him Grumpy Father Christmas. Because his take on the character was very, like, he was very kind of sinister in a way. He was more mad scientist than the hero. The hero was actually one of the other companions that tended to be the man of action that would help everyone, and the Doctor was like, no, we're leaving. Like, he was very, just like, stop it. He was more, I don't know, he was just a sinister figure. And Troughton decided to make him more like, they used to call him the crazy uncle that everyone loves, because he comes over on your birthday and brings you, like, wildly inappropriate gifts. And tells you great stories that your parents don't want you to know. Like, he's that crazy uncle, which everyone kind of aspires to be. And he just sort of took it, and Troughton was an actor's actor. Like, he'd done most of the principal roles in Shakespeare by the time he was at that point in his career. So he took on the role, and the first time out, everyone was like, "You suck, die," because he wasn't Hartnell. But he stuck with it, and for 3 years he played that role. And he also gave the writers carte blanche to explore the more science fiction, fantasy side of the show. Hartnell didn't like that stuff. He was like, no, I want this to be more about, like, let's go back into a period of time that really existed so we can teach children about Elizabethan England or Neolithic, Paleolithic, whatever. And so the writers were really constricted by Hartnell's view of what the show ought to be. And when when Troughton came on, he was like, oh yes, let's have ice giants and yetis, and let's go into space and have giant, and he was just nuts. And they were like, okay, and so the writers had a ball. And some of the more iconic villains come from that era, like the Cybermen.
The Daleks.
The Daleks didn't come from Troughton, but they certainly got a lot of attention in Troughton's era. But the Cybermen come largely from Troughton's era. A lot of the other great villains that still are with us come from Troughton because Troughton gave the writers carte blanche to do what they wanted. And he was so good as an actor with this wonderful material that he was getting, and just having it, you can just see what a blast he is having every second he is on screen. It infects his companions because they're having a ball too. Because of Troughton, we're talking about Doctor Who today. The show could not have survived Hartnell's retirement. And he was really into the con scene. He came to international cons dressed as the Doctor all the time for the rest of his life. In fact, he passed away at a con. In his hotel room, like he was an old gentleman, and he passed away quietly of a heart attack. And I met a guy not too long ago at a con who I told this story because someone asked me my favorite Doctor, and I went about my standard spiel about Troughton and how much I love him. And this guy came through my line, and he was like, I was in his last autograph line. And I was like, what was he like? Like, he was the Doctor. He was just this gentle, kind, eccentric guy who just loved everything about the fan culture and the show itself. Loved it. He'd always support other actors that took the role too, so he'd talk with them and be like, oh yes, I think which one is one of them. You maybe try this. And so they felt, he was kind of like the godfather of the whole Doctor Who thing. So, McCoy is another favorite of mine too because he's so Troughton-esque.
Scottish doctors.
The Scottish Doctors have the sexiest voices, all of them. Even Tennant, who is Scottish, but doesn't play him as Scottish. But McCoy was like, no, I'm Scottish. We're going to do this Scottish. I love McCoy. McCoy's writing is some of the darkest too on the show. I love it. Sorry, I ran it for like 15 minutes about Doctor Who. Yes, you. Yes. You're like, oh shit, he pointed at me.
This is my very first convention.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, our friends. Very first convention. Glad to have you, my friend. One of us.
Last night or two nights ago, I saw a video of you on Dr. EA and have like some weird Sebastian was
I met C-Dog at that same con in England I was talking about, where they kind of celebrated Sebastian, and Brandon was like, nah, your teacher. I met C-Dog there. He was terrified to approach me because he thought I would hate him. Because he was like, well, I kind of, make a living in imitating and making fun of you. And I'm like, no, that's great, I love it, please, let's hear it. And I knew who he was. I'd seen some of his stuff and thought, okay, he's actually really good. And we met, and he wanted to do this interview where he's like, can we do like this kind of sketch improv interview where it's really awkward and it looked like I want it to be cringy. And I'm like, oh, I got you, boo, let's do this. I love cringy, I love that kind of stuff. So we had just a basic format of what we wanted to do, and I fell in love with him over the course of that weekend because I think that interview is one of the funniest things I've ever gotten to do in my career ever, because it's just perfect. Like, he is perfect, and he gave me so much to work off of that. Brandon's mother, who stalks me online, saw that interview and still to this day thinks it's entirely real and will not listen to me when I say, like, no, he's a friend. That was all put on. Like, it was just having fun. She's like, no, I worry. I think he's a psycho and he's trying to kill you. And I'm like, it's Janine. Janine. Yeah, and then the other one he brought us champagne, which was nice because we do like to drink. Yeah, he's also very, very funny and very kind, which makes all the difference. Yes, you do.
So my question was actually going to tie into that whole tidbit, because I was at Anime Crossroads and watched you guys do your whole back and forth. And I was wondering who came up with the insult idea.
That's all him. That's all him. He was like, I want to do the insult,
Okay.
playground insult thing. That's kind of that's his thing. And I was like, I can do that. I can come up with some insults to throw in your face. But that's his stock and trade. He loves to play
Are
the
you
playground
going to be
insults.
doing that at another con?
Hopefully, yeah. It depends. It's hard. Of course, it's hard for